Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for coming out tonight. If you could please grab your seats, I want to welcome you to our second Public Budget Engagement Forum. Thank you. My name is Jenny Reed. Yes, thank you. Wonderful, thank you. My name is Jenny Reed. I'm the Mayor's Deputy Budget Director. You know, one of the things the Mayor tasked us with is taking the public's feedback into account before next year's budget is finalized. And that's what we're doing in these coming weeks, a fresh start from how the budget process has worked in the past. The Mayor has talked about a number of budget priorities in recent weeks, and tonight we get to hear some of yours. But first, let's hear from the Mayor. Tonight, I'd like to introduce you to Mayor Bowser.
Well, good evening, everybody. It is wonderful to see you all here at the beautiful Dunbar Senior High School. Let's give a big, rousing thank you to all of the staff, the principal, the students, and alumni of Dunbar High School for opening the school to us. We really, really appreciate it. And so I am also grateful to all of you for coming out on a cold night to talk about your budget priorities and how you can work with my administration to make sure that the budget that we present to the council at the beginning of April is reflective of our collective priorities, knowing the tasks that are before us. I do want to acknowledge at the outset members of my staff who are here. Some of them you will hear from on the program. Others will circulate around the tables as we have this discussion today. I do want to let everybody know who's standing that there are seats remaining throughout the room, so please feel free to find a seat. I want to introduce and acknowledge the Deputy Mayor for Planning and Economic Development who's here, Brian Kenner. Where's Brian? It's over at that table. Brian served in the Fenty and Gray administrations, and most recently he was at the City of Tacoma Park where we stole him. And we're very happy that he's with us. Also, the Office of Planning Director, Eric Shaw, is here, and Eric is standing there. Give him a big round of applause. Eric comes to us with a lot of planning and economic development experience, most recently from Salt Lake City. And we're very happy that he is now here in D.C. Dr. John Thompson is the director of the Office on Aging. And where's Dr. Thompson? There he is. Give him a big round of applause. And the director of the Department of the Environment, Tommy Wells, is here. Give Tommy Wells a big round of applause. The director of the Department of Public Works, Bill Howland, I understand is here, and we want to give him a big round of applause. Our Deputy Mayor for Health and Human Services is also here, Brenda Donald, and give her a big round of applause. I want to also acknowledge the Chief of Police, Kathy Lanier, who's at the front of the room as well. And I want to call her new, but I don't know that she feels new after 6 or 7 weeks in office. And she is the new Ward 1 Council member, Councilmember Brianne Nadeau. The Ward 6 Council member, Councilmember Charles Allen. And our Senator, Michael Brown. Where is Michael Brown? And Michael Brown is right there in the back. And so I trust also that a number of our ANC commissioners are here. If you're representing one of our ANCs, please stand or wave your hand so we can also acknowledge you. Our ANC commissioners, thank you for your service. Our Civic Association presidents, thank you for your service as well. And you will hear from my city administrator and budget director a little bit later on the program. So why are we here? We're here to talk about one of the most important things that mayors do. And let me also acknowledge Jeanette Mobley, who is the Chief of Staff for Councilmember McDuffie. Councilmember McDuffie couldn't be here, but I want to thank you, Jeanette, for being here to represent the Ward 5 Council office as well. So we're here to talk about a very specific thing, the budget. I said when the day I was sworn in on January 2nd that like all mayors in the history of mayors, I inherited the successes of my predecessors. And there are many in the district that we can be very proud of. We are a city that's growing, we're attracting new residents, we're attracting businesses, and we have money in the bank. So those are all things that I was very proud to inherit. I also, however, inherit the broken promises and the things that are overdue and the things that just plain don't work right? And that is what we have spent the last 6 weeks making sure we get an assessment of so that we can have a plan and action to get those things righted and on the way. I also inherited a $250 million budget deficit for the upcoming year, $240 million. While not insurmountable, it is something that certainly has my attention and the attention of all of our staff and yours. So how can we make sure that we're maintaining the level of services that we expect, growing some areas that have already been alerted as priorities with less revenue. So that's what we're here to talk about. We have a $10 billion budget, as you know, and we're going to spend the next 90 minutes talking about our priorities for closing those gaps. So it's not a complicated problem, is it? You know from your own households what it's like when you have expenses that exceed the amount of money that you have coming in. You know what it's like when you have unexpected things come up that you also have to plan for. Many of you are probably looking at a car that when it's 9 degrees outside won't start, and so you have to start planning for how you're going to buy a new car. Others of you are thinking about what type of vacation you can take to get out of the cold weather and what type of planning and savings you have to do for that. Others of you are planning for how you're going to send your kids to college and how you have to save for that. Now, unfortunately, you might have had a loss of income in your family, maybe less hours, maybe a lost job, maybe a project that didn't come through that you thought was going to come through. So you're having to figure out how to take care of your current needs with less money. So the district is no different. You also probably start at the beginning of the year or at some point during the year making that plan for what you expect to come in the expenses that you already have planned, how you're going to cut back on them or how you're going to add to them, or how you're going to go out and get more money to take care of the things that you want to take care of. So our budget process is really no different. I had the great opportunity of going around the city for the last 20 or so months in every neighborhood and every ward talking about priorities. I learned, and I think many people learned, that I'm a practical politician who likes to roll up her sleeves and get the work done, but also not to tell you things that we can't do, to be honest, and tell you the situation that we're dealing with so you can help us. What we heard are a number of priority areas, and in these priority areas, you can find just about every agency of our government and every dollar that we've spent. So you have selected a table because those priorities are important to you as well. So we want you to discuss improving education, improving public safety, improving economic opportunity, improving neighborhoods, improving infrastructure in the environment. So you notice on that list, it doesn't say DPR, does it? Parks and Recreation. But DPR priorities are in any one of those areas. It doesn't say specifically DDOT, does it? But DDOT is in one of those areas. It doesn't say Department of Health, but health is in one of those areas. So whatever the priority that you want us to stay focused on, I want you to find how it affects education, public safety, expanding opportunities, improving neighborhoods, and improving our infrastructure and the environment. And at the end of the day, at the end of this session, we'll be able to hear trends that come from around this room, compile them with what we've heard in the other two sessions, and really have a roadmap to follow as we prepare the budget. I promised, as we were going around the city these last 20 or so months, that we had to upend our budget process. I grew very frustrated on the council that the mayors would, prepare the budgets and then come and ask the citizens if that was okay. But by the time the mayor sends the budget to the council, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. There's very little that can change. This is the input stage where we can make the most difference and produce a budget that's most reflective of our collective desires. So thank you so much for being here tonight, and I'm very pleased to You're welcome. You're welcome, Robin. And so now I want to turn to our city administrator, who is going to get down to the nuts and bolts and numbers, and then we're going to get to work talking to each other. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and good evening to all of you, and welcome to our second budget engagement forum. As you heard from the mayor, we're here tonight to talk about and have a conversation about where our tax dollars are being spent, and quite frankly, where they shouldn't be spent. So I want to talk a little bit about where the current dollars are being spent and give a quick budget 101, if you will. In the current budget year, which we're nearly halfway through, the Bowser administration inherited a $7.7 billion spending plan for our local taxpayer dollars. The rest of the $10 billion that you hear about is federal dollars that we don't have a lot of control over. Our budget has primarily two parts. We pay for our programs and our people in what we call the operating budget. The second part of that is called the capital budget, which we use to pay for things like recreation centers, libraries, roads, and bridges. So you can see a breakdown in this next slide of the areas where we spend our operating dollars. We spend about $733 million, or 10%, in government direction and support, about 5% in economic development and regulation, about 14% or $1.06 billion in public safety, 26% in education, that's about $1.9 billion, Health and Human Services, another $1.9 billion, $626 million or 8% in public works activities, and about 11% or $787 million in financing for the debt that we issue to pay for those capital projects that we fund. And let's talk a little bit about the capital budget and show where those resources go. About $55 million or 4% go to government direction and support, 5% in economic development, that equates to about $72 million, $47 million in public safety at 4%. One of our largest investments in capital is in education, about $505 million, that's 40%. About 1% in health and human services, and 1% in public works and transportation. So you heard the mayor talk about the priority areas that you're grouped in around the various tables in the room, and I want to give you a brief snapshot of some of the major program costs in each of these areas. So as you talk about education or economic opportunity or public safety, this will give you a sense of where we're spending dollars in each of those categories. So when you talk about what your priorities are, what you want us to focus on, you can see where we're spending money today. About $1.3 billion is used to provide education services to 87,000 public school children. That includes both DCPS and our charter schools. $7.6 million in early childhood services, $26 million for wraparound services for children with special needs, and $29 million for programs at our 26 libraries. In the economic opportunity area, Just a snapshot of where those investments are: $43 million for job training programs, $34 million for unemployment insurance and enforcing fair labor practices, $3 million for startups to access capital, another $60 million for job training and cash assistance for TANF families, about $111 million for shelter and services for our homeless neighbors, $750 million for health care coverage for DC residents. When we look at the improving neighborhoods priority, we spent $11 million in streetscape and facade improvements along our main streets, $46 million towards affordable housing rents and vouchers, $36 million towards construction and business inspection, licensing, and permitting, $8 million for public arts projects, $30 million for programming at our recreation centers, and another $17 million for maintenance and upkeep of those centers. In the public safety category, just a picture of our investments there: $345 million to keep 4,000 police officers on duty, $78 million to run the DC jail, $25 million to handle 911 and 311 calls, and $7 million to maintain and operate our 33 fire stations. When we talk about investment and in improving our infrastructure and environment, there's $50 million that we spend on road and bridge maintenance and repairs, about $30 million for energy efficiency and renewable energy programs, $4 million for safety and emissions, $26 million to protect our waterways, and about $300 million for Metro Bus. So just think about those expenditures as we talk about what your priorities are, and talk about where you think we should make investments and where you think we ought to either have new investments or reduce our spending in certain areas. You have a number of people at the table. Our deputy mayors and some of our senior leadership team is here, so I won't introduce those folks again, but we'll be around the room to listen to your conversations and answer any questions that you might have. And so right now I want to turn it over to our budget director, Matt Brown.
Thanks and good evening. I'm really glad to see so many people here to talk about the budget. It's really exciting. The budget's a pretty complicated process, as you can probably understand, with a $7 billion budget, and we frankly need some help, and we're really hoping that tonight you can give us some good ideas. We want to deliver a balanced budget for the mayor. It's the right thing to do. It's also the law, so we want to make sure that we follow the law as we put our budget together. The mayor talked about a quarter billion dollar budget gap. It's obviously a big number, and you're going to hear a lot of numbers tonight. Rashad, the city administrator, mentioned some of the spending on our programs. The district did finish last fiscal year with a surplus, and many of you have heard about that. But the reason that we have a budget gap is there's the projection right now between the revenues, so that's all the revenue that we collect from parking meters and income tax and sales tax. All those revenues are short of what the cost of running all the programs, like even this school, but all the programs across the district cost to operate. So each year the CFO does that projection. They project how much income is going to come in and how much things are going to cost, and that's where we get the budget gap. The mayor talked about your household budget, and it really is not unlike your household budget, where every year you sit back and look, you know how much you're going to bring in income, but you also think about how much you're going to spend. And every year, you know, some costs increase. Cost of food increases, summer camp for the kids, the trip you want to take, the rent you're paying, all those costs seem to increase every year. And the same thing is true with our government. And if you know that your revenues and your costs are not equal, you start to prioritize. And that's what we're really asking you to do tonight. We know that there's a gap, and we need you to help us prioritize the programs to fund next year. Just like you would do in your household budget. You might take a cheaper vacation, you might only be able to fund one of those summer camps, but you make those important choices in your home life. So back to balancing the budget. In a budget that's as big as the district's, I think it's helpful to think about, again, these big numbers. So let me try to help. $240 million budget gap that the mayor talked about. That is about the same cost as we spend on fire and emergency medical services across the district. That amount is $200 million. So $200 million on all the firehouses and the EMS services, and that's about $200 million. It's about 4 times the amount that we spend on our public libraries. Again, libraries, the central library and all the neighborhood libraries, that's about $57 million. It's about a third of the cost that we spend on our DC Public Schools. DC Public Schools spends about $710 million, so it's about a third of that. And it's double, Bill Halland here, Director Halland is here, the Director of the Public Works Department. It's about double the size of his agency. He spends about $128 million clearing snow, which I think we all appreciate, trash collection, and more. That's about 128 again, about double, and we spend it, the gap is about double that. So we're here to ask you to do some work. Let's start doing that. Again, thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your ideas with us. Jenny Reed, who's the Deputy Budget Director, is going to walk us through the details of how tonight will go. Thank you very much, and thanks for being here.
All right, good evening again. So we're going to have you break out into some small group discussions in just a minute. But before we do that, we're going to play a little game. So on your table, each of you has a sheet that looks like this. On the top, it says, how would you allocate $100? This is a simple budget exercise, but it tells us a lot. What you've got in these sheets is the sort of 5 key goals that we have laid out for the budget tonight: improving public safety, education, economic opportunity, infrastructure and environment, and neighborhoods. And we want you to be the mayor for a minute. We want you to take that $100, take a couple minutes, and decide how you would allocate that. So divvy it up between the 5 priorities. It should add up to $100. And we're going to collect these at the end, and it's going to help tell us about what are the priorities in the room. So take just 2 minutes to do this. I'm going to come back and tell you about the rest of the program. Thank you very much. So now we're going to turn over to the small group portion of our discussion. And if you haven't quite finished filling out your sheet for the budget game, don't worry. You can keep doing that during your discussion. But I bet a lot of you found when you were trying to allocate the dollars that it's not that easy, especially with a limited amount of funds. And that's why we're really here tonight. We're here to talk about the tough choices and priorities that you want to see in the budget. So here's how the rest of the evening is going to go. You have a facilitator at your table. This facilitator is there to help you and take notes on your discussion. At the tables, you're going to talk about 2 key areas. You're going to talk about your priorities for the budget. These are going to include 2 to 3 new things that you guys think we should be doing in the budget to improve the area you're sitting in. You're also going to talk about 2 to 3 things that you don't want us to cut. Because as you heard from Matt earlier, we are facing a $250,000 billion budget shortfall, and we really need to cut back in some areas. So what do you want us to protect? You have about 20 minutes for that. After that discussion, we're going to switch gears, and we're going to talk about closing that gap. So you're going to tell us what are 2 to 3 things that you think we can cut back on. Maybe these are programs that you think don't work well or that we're spending too much money on. And you're also going to talk about other ways to solve the gap. You may say revenues, and we're going to ask you to be specific about what you think we can raise. You're going to have about 25 minutes for that. So your facilitator is going to take over now. If you have really important questions, the facilitator is going to be able to get someone over to your table to help answer that. I'm going to be floating around and coming back to the mic and telling you guys when you need to wrap up your discussions and switch your time. So thank you very much, and take it away.
And I'm thinking that if we are serious about education in the city, we need to treat both the least and the best the same. And that's my comment.
If we did that, where would you cut money from else in the budget? I have to play it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I guess my thought is, shifting money towards, almost like out of the criminal justice side, because shifting it to, early education to hopefully prevent, the prison pipeline. So I would almost think investing more to prevent youth from going into the criminal justice system.
La otra cosa es necesitamos formar una escuela de construcción, porque aunque estos compañeros están ahí y saben un poquito de construcción, necesitan certificación seria para poder conseguir trabajo que valgan la pena y poder mantener su familia y poder hacer todo lo que necesitan hacer.
Understanding what the strengths are in the district economy and outreach to businesses that are located in other jurisdictions, in framing the district's brand as an economy and attracting more people to bring their businesses to the district.
Prioritizing some items more and being able to spend a little bit on others and balancing.
Also, I don't think that the city services are well balanced across all A wards, which I think is something that everybody is addressing on the District of Columbia, whether you live in Ward A or Ward 1 or Ward 3, you know? I think the city services should be balanced out everywhere.
Okay, so you're talking about services basically.
Schools. We're talking about education.
Right now, swimming is free. That ought to continue.
I don't know that we should increase funding. I think it should just be monitoring.
People get on that train after all of its delays and they're standing there waiting for watching people walk by them in cars zoom by them the whole time. I don't know that we can recover from so much. So I think it's smart, although frustrating, that we just hold, let's make sure it runs really, really well. And then people finally get on those trolleys, it's just really, really well, running smoothly, and everyone's talking about how convenient it is. I think that's really important.
So we contract it out to a collection agency. They get the money and we get it, and we, I don't know what percentage we get of what they collect.
Right.
You know, so either we forgive it, you know,
after a while,
yeah.
When they break up our roads and stuff, all those utility cuts. I know that there's a permitting process, and I'm not sure how much, what they're paying towards road improvement.
Okay.
And I would take a look at things like bike share and what their contribution is.
Well, that's another thing. I don't think that we get enough out of us advertising in some of our public space.
No, pero posiblemente otra pregunta de cómo.
It's about 26% for education, 26% for health and human services.
And it's also online and people can.
Yeah, it will be at budget.gc.gov.
What has been taken out of the community is basically recreation. And recreation was an intricate part of this community. I do indeed think that we need to really get back into recreating the recreation of children. And that will actually control a lot of the crime that's in the direct neighborhood.
Okay, everyone, if I could have your attention, please. I want to thank you all for coming out tonight and sharing your priorities and your ideas for closing the gap with us. We heard some really great things tonight and some things that we keep hearing forum after forum. More training programs, more affordable housing, more need for opportunities for adult training and workforce development. But now what I'd like to do is invite Mayor Bowser back up to the podium to help us close out the evening. Thank you all.
Well, thank you, everybody. I got a chance to participate in a number of the tables. Did you have good discussion at your table? All right, let's hear it for good discussion. Does anybody want to volunteer and tell me how they spent their $100? Anybody? No volunteers? Okay, I have a volunteer. Tell me how you spent your $100. Will you stand up?
As an education, my entire amount of money on education.
You spent $100 on education. Okay.
Can I do anything without education?
All right.
Of course, I know you're going to increase that, but I put all my money on
all right.
education. education.
Thank you, ma'am. Does anybody else want to share? One person over here wants to share? Hold on one second.
Affordable housing is obviously my big thing. That's why I'm here. Yeah, definitely. I mean, you don't
Let me
believe
just
it.
tell me what you spent your $100 on.
I spent $20 on education, 15 on public safety, 20 on economic development, 30 on neighborhoods, and 15 on infrastructure.
Okay, so you sound like you made investments all across the city agency. So which one was your highest?
Neighborhoods. Like I said,
Neighborhoods.
affordable housing.
Affordable housing. Thank you, sir. Thank you. All right, I have one here.
So my name is Ricardo, I live in Ward 5. I spent $35 on education, $15 on public safety, $20 on economic opportunity, $15 on neighborhoods, and $15 on infrastructure and environment.
All right, thank you. Pretty evenly with education being the highest. Is there one more over here? Yes, ma'am. Microphone's coming your way.
Hello, everyone. How's everybody? I have $100 and $25 went towards education. $10 went towards public safety because I do believe that public safety is doing such a wonderful job in my community, 5E07. $20 went on economic opportunities and $20 went on neighborhoods. $25 went on infrastructure and environment.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Yes, Jim, you have one? Yes, how would you like to spend your $100? Let me get a microphone that's coming your way.
Thank you. So education is important to me and also public safety. So I spent, oh, I'm sorry, I'm Nicola.
Hi, Nicola.
So as I said before, education and public safety are important to me. So I spent $30 on education and $30 on public safety. Economic opportunity, I spent $20 and $10 on neighborhood and $10 on infrastructure.
All right, thank you, thank you. I have one more right here, then I'm going to come to this side. Yes, ma'am.
All right, good evening. I'm
Good.
Veronica Nelson, and I live in Ward 6. I have child care centers in Ward 7, and I also have one in Ward 6 as well. We would spend 25% on education, another 10 on public safety, 20 on economic opportunity, 20 on neighborhoods, and 25 on infrastructures and environment.
All right, very good. Another very even distribution. And Warren, let me get a microphone to you. Right behind you. And so after, we're going to take two here, and then we're going to talk about gap closing ideas. Yes.
18 on education, 15 on public safety, 25 on economic opportunity, 25 on neighborhoods, and 17 on infrastructure and environment.
Okay, thank you. And yes, Eric?
It's great to be called by name, but for those who don't know me, I'm Eric Sheptock, the homeless advocate, and I would spend $24 on education, $6 on public safety, $40 on economic opportunity, $12 on neighborhoods, and $18 on infrastructure.
Very good, thank you. Another very even distribution. So now I'm going to ask you to look at your list, and I'm going to, by the sound of your clapping hands, ask you to identify the item that you allocated the most money to. And I'm going to go down the whole list. So if education is your number one issue, then you would clap. All right, when I call education. If public safety was your number one expenditure, you would wait to clap until I called out public safety. Does everybody understand? Okay, so now you're looking down your list, finding the item that you spent the most money on, and then clapping. Now, if you all 20s, right? Some of you I know did that. Then you can decide what you want to clap on. Okay, you got me? All right. So if education is your number one issue, clap your hands. And if you're the deputy mayor for education, you can also hoop. All right, if public safety is your number one issue, clap your hands. Okay, Chief of Police. If economic opportunity is your number one issue, clap your hands. If neighborhoods are your number one issue, clap your hands. If infrastructure and the environment is your number one issue, please clap your hands. All right. So you can see why my job is a tough one, right? Because we have a lot of very important issues, and these items were on the list because they're all important to the smooth functioning of our city as it is right now, and important to how we're growing as a city so that we can all maintain a high quality of life, and that all of our residents, no matter the ward, no matter where people find themselves right now, have access to opportunity to enjoy the prosperity that's growing in Washington. And that's what the purpose of this session is tonight, but that's also what I hope to reflect in the budget that I submit to the council. So the last set of questions just have to do with ideas. I told you we have a gap. We have expenses up here, revenues here. So what would you do to lessen that gap? Spend less or find more money? Okay, yes, sir. Okay, but Mike coming your way. And then I'm going to take 2 on this side and 2 on this side, and then we're going to wrap up. And I'll take you also.
Thank you, Muriel.
Thank you.
I think I have the solution to the gap.
Okay.
$240 million worth of speed cameras. Take them out.
You just made the gap bigger. I thought you said you had the solution.
Just deactivate them, let them stand, and let us drive, okay?
Okay.
Please.
Now, all drivers are welcome. All speeders are not. Okay, so this is a question that actually makes the gap bigger, but it is a suggestion nonetheless. And so we want to keep it on the parking lot, as they say. Yes.
Hi, Mayor. My name is Sylvie Bello, and I'm with the Cameroon American Council, one African immigrant group here in the district ward, and I'm from Ward 2. One of the ways to close the gap would be to look into export, to tap into our sister city relationships, to as well as look into, we already are big on national tourism. A lot of kids from all around the country come here. Let's look into international tourism. A lot of the tourism dollars that come into the country skip DC. And all the embassies say here.
I got it. So close the gap by attracting more tourism dollars.
More tourism dollars and export.
And exports. Okay, thank you. Good idea. Okay, I'm going to take one more on this side. Yes, this gentleman right here. And then 2 here, and then you, sir, will close out. Close the gap. How would you close the gap?
Hi, I'm Chris from Ward 2. I'm going to go with energy usage.
Okay.
Just today, there are a lot of lights on in this building over there that we're not using, and you see a lot of lights on in district government buildings.
Okay.
All over. Turn those lights off when we're not using those facilities.
I got it. That's energy is a huge and growing expense. So conserve energy in public buildings. Got it. 2 over here. I have 1 at this table, and then you've gone onward, so I'll go here. Yes? There are two folks at this table, so I'm going to go to these 2 young ladies here, and then I'll come to you.
To close the gap, we talked about paying our bills on time, so we're not paying penalties and fees and being charged over, because the district has a history of paying its bills, but paying it late.
I got it. That's a good one.
And penalized.
All right, so the district should pay its bills on time to avoid penalties. Yes, yes, ma'am.
There's so much building that's going on. I guess it's a good thing, but try to use some contractors that got DC driver's license on their cars.
All right, so close the gap by hiring more DC residents and companies. Right, and that would close the gap because then they would pay us more taxes. Okay? Okay, this gentleman, yes, sir.
Good evening, everybody. My name's Omar Cato. We were talking about actually the outrageous salaries of some government officials. It makes no sense for the UDC president to be making $150,000 more than yours truly right here. So we actually just brought that up at our table. And actually the housing problem, the 162% cost of living, when it's compared to other areas in the nation, the reason why salaries are so high because they have to offset to deal with the housing issue.
Okay, so close the gap by
reining in salaries.
Reining in government salaries.
Totally
Got it.
outrageous.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Carrie Ann Nadeau. I'm a resident of Ward 4. I'd like the mayor to follow the lead of other mayors in Chicago, Chicago, New York, and Boston to make use of our open data portal, which is currently up and live. It has data about all of the city services we discussed tonight, and I'd like to see the mayor engage residents to evaluate that data and find insights that might save city services money.
Okay, close the gap by giving residents more ideas so residents can make suggestions about all manner of city services. Got it. And yes, sir, you have the last word.
My name's Rob. I live in Ward 4. And I think, we all know the cost of housing is exploding, and that puts a lot of burden on the city in terms of spending money on housing programs, but I also think we can get a little bit of that money back. We have the lowest property taxes in the region. Now, I know we don't want to increase the burden on middle-income homeowners, but there's a lot of million-dollar houses in this city. There are a lot of $2 million houses in this city. There are a lot of houses that are worth a lot more than that. And I think we can think about a graduated property tax that falls on the wealthiest DC residents who are seeing the value of their property explode, and we can use that to pay for services that'll keep low-income, moderate-income DC residents here, not push them out.
Okay, so Rob's suggestion is to close the gap by raising property taxes on higher valued properties. Is that it? Okay, so everybody, thank you for your participation. I think that we received a lot of valuable information. This was the second in our series of forums. The last one will be this Saturday at Anacostia High School at 1 p.m. And we would like to collect, if I could just have your attention for 2 more seconds, how you spent your money form. Okay, how you allocated your $100 million, and if you have a chance to also do your evaluations. And I would like to acknowledge at-large Councilmember Vincent Orange. Where is Vincent Orange? VO, there he is. Thank you, Councilmember Orange, for being here. And I would like to acknowledge all of my staff. Would you give them a big round of applause for working really hard to put this forum together? And thank you, everybody, and be safe getting home tonight. Thank you.